Hey, welcome to Captive Audience. It is Wonderful Wednesday, and Don and I are back on the air. I'm so glad to have you back, Don. I'm glad you're feeling better.
Thanks so much. It's a wonderful Wednesday as always, and it was great to see you, Sunny, and it's great to be with the gang once again on really a wonderful weather Wednesday. Also, not sure
Oh,
what you're
isn't
experiencing over there. It's like 68 degrees here.
I don't know what the temperature is outside, but it is a beautiful day. The sun is out, and the temperature was really nice. I had to go to a meeting this afternoon, and as I'm driving, I have like a 40-minute drive, and I go, this is so nice. Now, it's 40 minutes on a two-lane road out through
Mhm.
the country of the wheat fields,
Yeah,
and it's just so pretty. So,
yeah.
yeah, it's
It's a
not
good way
like
to
city
relax.
driving.
Right, right. It's a good way. Yeah, exactly. It's a good way to relax. On a nice country road, it's not a stressful thing like it is in the city. So,
No, it isn't. Well, of course, the news keeps on giving. That is for sure.
mm,
And we saw a few things. I want to kind of start off with Oregon here. And Tina Kotek, her administration's having some issues. And her top lawyer has resigned. In fact, so I just posted a story there that covers several things. And this is out of Oregon Catalyst. It says the Oregon Kotek's top lawyer resigns. Deputy General Counsel Lindsey Burrows is the fourth staffer to leave Kotek's executive office in the past few weeks.
hmm wow.
This top lawyer had only been in office for just a year.
hmm
And then what else has happened in the past 2 weeks? Two of Kotek's top aides resign at the same time. Details are emerging of Kotek's wife's conflict with staff and her private office and staff. Two ethics complaints have been filed. Kotek requests ethics guidance. That's as a result of those ethics complaints, I'm sure, but can't be provided due to unresolved ethic complaints.
hmm
And also, resigned chief of staff gets 8-month job at administration department. And, so stuff is getting pretty unsettling around Governor Tina Kotek.
No matter what you think of her policies, how effective can you be, when you're handcuffed by all these, nattering type things going on? And this is one of the reasons why you want to elect people who are ethical, because even if, um, or ethically clean, I should say, because you don't want to be taken off your game by dealing with all these, sidebar issues. So whether you're for her or not, we're clearly not. This is not good. It's not good to have elected officials. We have this dirty laundry.
No, it isn't. And also this goes on to say that she has been quite slow in signing the bills that are 3 weeks after the session has ended. She's just hasn't been signing these bills. And in
Mhm,
fact, she is on some of them doing line item vetoes
mhm.
on them. And so, yeah, I
Well,
don't
she
think
was,
that that is what the legislators intended either.
well, her distraction is good for the rest of us, for
Yeah.
sure.
Oh yeah, that you got that right. You got that right.
But the bigger issue is that it'd be nice to have people who don't have all this baggage in office.
Yes. If they would just stick to doing what's actually right for the people that they are elected to represent would be the best thing instead of making an agenda and trying to go the woke route.
Mhm.
But the district attorney, Mike Smith, he faces a bar complaint. And at issue is Smith's handling of clemency applications for two people convicted of aggravated murder. And so Chuck French, a retired longtime Multnomah County prosecutor, filed a bar complaint on April 3rd against District Attorney Mike Schmidt, who's running for reelection in May. And of course, Mike Schmidt's campaign is going, oh, this is all politics. But in the complaint, apparently, French alleges Smith violated Oregon state bar rules that prohibit dishonesty, fraud, deceit, or misrepresentation in the handling of clemency applications for two people convicted of aggravated murder in cases that French had prosecuted. And in both clemency proceedings, French alleges Smith made egregious misrepresentations to the governor regarding the facts of the criminal cases and the subsequent behavior of the offenders while serving their sentence in prison. So you this is the person who had prosecuted those cases, is very familiar with them, and I would say might very well have something to stand on there.
Well, it always comes down to the evidence. I like the way it opened. You talked about the person accusing him of playing politics. Well,
Yeah.
that's why they call it politics. It's like the silliest canard people can throw out. Of course, it's politics. So at the end of
Right.
the day, what you have to look at is, though, is there any evidence to support the accusation? And if there isn't, then of course, yeah, it's just politics and move on. But if there is, then that has to be looked at. And it sounds like there is.
Well, it sounds like there is, so that's something to keep our eye on. I was, glad to see that article. Another one is that's things are plaguing Oregon, a few things. This one is from the Lund Report, and an Oregon maternal health employee is indicted in Texas and has been accused of exporting marijuana to Texas to a Texas crime ring. This is Oregon's health authority employee. This is not a good look at all. You know, so this Mui Safford, I probably slaughtered their first name, has been arrested on behalf of a Texas law enforcement in connection with allegations of growing cannabis for purported crime ring in Texas. And, I'm wondering if this came out of the, marijuana issues that our Bowley had and others. I have no idea because they've been doing clearly investigations on some of this stuff. So, and the campaign donations that were from that company, I can't remember the name, that was had to do with marijuana, and they had offices or businesses in other states. This could be one. I don't really know,
Yeah, you would
but
think you'd get in trouble being Oregonian just doing business with a Texan. There's
yeah,
crime.
yeah. And so she's not the first Oregon Health Authority employee to face indictment.
Mhm.
However, it is highly unusual that an active state public health employee would be arrested as a result of a state extradition request
That's
in
pretty bold.
connection
Yeah.
with alleged organized crime.
Mhm.
So, it's just not looking real good there at all for, employees here in the state of Oregon. But we do have some good news. The House passed Lori Chavez DeRemer bill to improve addiction treatment and boost digital skills training in adult education. And I think that's a good thing. Whether it'll pass in the Senate, I have no idea. But anything that we can help with addiction treatment, because Lord knows there's lots of that, I think is a good thing.
Mhm. Yeah, it is really nice to hear that because there's almost like no talk of doing anything about getting these people like off the drug. And
Yeah.
first you have to get them off the street, but then you have to get them off the drug. If you're not doing both of those together, it's just, it's not going to fly. So it is nice to hear that that's actually happening in some small corner of the universe.
Yes, I totally agree. And yes, Bobby, we have some good news tonight. There's that you can look everywhere else and you can see bad news. There's lots of that, but we want to also point out some good things. And one of them, this is some good news and food for thought. An audit finds serious problems at U.S. Postal Service facility. Now, this is a postal service facility in, let's see, was that West Virginia? I think so. It was in Richmond, Virginia.
Mhm.
And so they're finding that there's been water damage mail, workers found asleep on a forklift. They had all kinds of things. And what 60% of the first class mail at this particular facility had only 66% had been delivered within 2 days. And one of the reasons that Don and I wanted to bring this up is because, we do mail in voting here in the state of Oregon. And something that we both recommend is do not mail your ballot. Drop it in a drop box or turn it into your county elections office. Here in where I live, and I'm in Umatilla County in Eastern Oregon, I had just learned a couple weeks ago that the mail, they used to do mail twice a day here in our town. Now, whenever the mail truck comes at like 5 o'clock in the morning, whatever mail they have is the mail that's leaving. They're not coming back at 1:15 in
Mhm.
the afternoon because we used to have mail into the post office before 1:15 for the truck to take it out. And so now it's only once a day. And yet the guy at the counter that was telling me this said, but it's going to make our mail faster. And I thought, how's that? We used to have it twice a day. And
Mhm.
now you're going to once a day?
Yeah. Well, and the whole thing too is you have to realize we all know that the government's not unbiased. I mean, there is a party that is pro-government, and that party is, let's face it, is run by the left. And so to turn your ballot over to the party that is going to be doing the counting is like, what are we thinking? So that by itself should tell you that you shouldn't do mail-in balloting. In fact, mail-in balloting that's one of the reasons it should be illegal in the first place. A government outfit counting votes that can decide things that would reduce its size. Well, in an ideal world where you had ethical people, yeah, but clearly in the last 10, 15 years, that hasn't been the case. So, ballot, it really should go back to go down to the local school, stand in line, like cast your ballot in person, like it used to be, unless you're overseas or clearly physically incapable of doing it. I mean, but this mail-in balloting stuff is just as rife for opportunity to cheat as the electronic version, and just shouldn't be done. But at least something you can control individually, personally yourself. You don't have to participate in either of that. Don't mail
Yeah.
it.
Well, something else, I think it was Pennsylvania, but don't quote me if it was Pennsylvania, that had their Supreme Court had just deemed that if there's no postmark on the ballot, it is not acceptable. And, but yet here in Oregon, the Secretary of State and maybe even the legislature had said it doesn't have to have a postmark. Anything that's received, that we're supposed to trust the postal system, that they're going to say, okay, if it got in by 5 o'clock on election day, we're going to call it counted. Well, if it's in one of those little boxes outside, that they're now picking it up at 6 o'clock in the morning the next day, is that going to be acceptable and counted? And then because it has a prepaid envelope, it is not being date stamped. Actually, it has a date but it does not have the year on there. And so, I think it's not good. I think it's quite frankly fraudulent that the envelopes do not have a timestamp or has been canceled instead of just some barcode thing on it. It needs to be, have that canceled. And I think that's a big issue in Oregon, and that takes the legislators fixing it. And it's unfortunately with our Democrat controlled state, they're not going to fix it. They've just
Well,
in fact made our whole election system worse, but we still have to vote. I don't want to discourage people from voting. I
right.
just want to tell you that we have to vote and
Mhm.
turn your ballot in. Do not put it in the mail at
Yeah,
all.
yeah, and I'll tell you just from personal experience. Back in, I want to say 2016, we used to have subscriptions to some conservative publications, and this is the run up to the Hillary election against Trump, and our magazines just stopped showing up for like months. And to make a long story short, it turned out that the people that the post office is like decided not to deliver mail if it didn't fit a certain political persuasion. They just didn't deliver it.
Oh
Uh,
my gosh.
no, that went on for like a year, um, and there's no other explanation across 3 or 4 different publications. Now, since then, we don't get anything in the mail like that, but that just gives you an idea. All it takes is a couple of people, well placed delivery people, whoever they are, and they'll do that kind of stuff. We're talking evil people.
Well, it unfortunately it is there are bad actors that aren't just taking the integrity of their job. They're going to use politics to their benefit. And in fact, like Lori says, our mail in Kaiser goes to Portland for sorting to come back to Salem. Well, actually, all of the mail in Oregon now goes to Portland. It used to be like where I'm at, it would get processed in Pendleton and then get distributed around our local communities and go off to wherever it's going to go, but not any longer. Now our mail, and how green is that, right? That all the mail has to go from Eastern Oregon over to Portland, and then it can come back here.
You
It's
know,
like a
but
farce.
you have to think
And
to yourself, would a business do that? Is that cost effective? Is it less? The cost of stamps like 65 cents now. I mean, it's like insane. You mail 10 Christmas cards that cost you $6.50. Are you kidding me? It's no wonder they'll point to email as being the reason for the demise of the post office, but it might also be that people can't afford it anymore. Maybe they can't afford it is because of the inefficiency of the post office. Why does it cost me the same to mail a letter to Ketchikan, Alaska, as it does one across the street? I mean,
right.
that's not how UPS or FedEx or Percolator Courier or any of them do it. I would have to think that it's government run and they don't feel the cost of it, so they just do whatever. So sending everything to the center in Portland, I mean, I don't know. It just
Well,
seems.
the thing is though, Don, I still write checks. Yes,
Mhm,
I have a few things that are auto pay, but
mhm,
for me, I still write a check and I put a stamp on it
mhm,
because I want to keep our cash system. I don't
mhm,
want to just have everything electronic. And
mhm,
also, that check, there's no fees for processing that, like there
mhm,
is all of these other types, credit card payments and stuff like that, where there's everybody's charging a fee for something. And so
well, I
by
100% agree with you. I still do checks too. I don't like it doing everything electronically for a whole bunch of other reasons, right? My,
yeah,
my only complaint is that I'm wondering if it really is that should be that expensive to mail a stamp. And part
right.
of the reason why they're losing so much business to this electronic stuff may be that their cost model is bad, and the cost model is bad because they've got no incentive to like do better. Um,
Well, you're right, because there's no what the competition, there is competition, but not for US mail, right?
mm,
I mean, you have FedEx, UPS out there, and now US mail is delivering packages on Sunday even.
mhm,
So,
right.
but the problem, as I understand it, and our audience can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that the monies from the US Postal Service is being the profits from that are being taken and put into our general fund or used elsewhere. I remember years and years and years ago that there was something about that. So I don't know if that's the case or if costs have gotten so high because of the union that and what they're doing is that they're losing money. I don't know,
Well,
but I do think that part of it is the money that is getting taken, floated off the top of the coffers of the U.S. Postal Service.
well, if you follow Abraham Lincoln's principle, whatever people can do themselves, they should do for themselves. You know, I can't make a bigger case for something other than maybe the educational system than the postal system. Clearly, the people could do that for themselves. There's all kinds of companies delivering mail. It's against the law to deliver mail of a certain sort because to protect the post office. But if it went away, I think we'd be fine. There'd be companies that pop up that would deliver your mail.
Yes. And so to going back to that vote by mail, they also found at this one office was mail over 2 months old left in a container in the truck yard. And so how much how many times have we all heard, oh yeah, this whole box of missing ballots was found,
Hmm.
and after an election, there's always been something, or a carrier they've thrown away all the mail because he couldn't keep
Yeah.
up. So the carrier trashes a bunch of mail they find in a dumpster somewhere. Well, they can do that during election day too. So that's, just do not mail your ballot whatsoever.
Yeah.
If you have a friend drop it off for you, somebody you trust, though, only somebody you
Right.
trust. That's legal in the state of Florida, of Oregon. I almost said Florida. Where you living in Oregon?
Living in Oregon. That's the way to put
Yeah,
it.
yeah. So,
Surviving in Oregon.
hey, well, some other good news that I mean, I don't know if I'm going to call this good news, except for I like the fact that Rand Paul is bringing things to light. And because of his investigations, he said that there are 15 agencies, 15 US governmental agencies, federal agencies that knew in 2018 that the Wuhan Institute of Virology was trying to create a coronavirus like COVID 19, and nobody said anything. And so the cover up involves big tech. And this episode might get taken down because of what we're talking about right now,
Mhm.
but it's unconscionable to to for the lies that have been told, not just to Americans, but the world over. And um, that this, I'm so glad that of the investigations that he's doing. And I remember hearing Fauci go, "You don't know what you're talking about," to Rand Paul. And oh, yeah, he did. He
Yeah.
was spot on right the entire time. And so this is, it's great news, and more people need to know about it. So I threw a link in there, read about it, and
Truth is like water on a dam, right? You can dam it, and water will it evaporate. It'll go under it. It'll go around it. It'll wear it down. It'll just keep coming, and we're seeing that with all things having to do with this virus stuff. The whole story is absolutely coming apart. And they can put their finger in the dike as much as they want, but you only got 10 fingers, and there's a whole lot more cracks showing up than that. There was a story, I think it was in the Washington Post this morning about what was it? Uh, aging young people, I think it was called, or something like that. So we're having this epidemic of young people who are now, however you want to define aging, but this is say getting diseases that used to be in the confines of the elderly or older people, right?
they're
So you got people.
rapidly aging.
Right, right, rapidly aging. So you got young people getting all kinds of cancers and strokes and heart attacks and diabetes and like all of this stuff in neurological disorders that you're not supposed to get. Parkinson's, you name it. You're not supposed to be looking at that stuff till you're in your 60s or 70s at least. And we've got people getting this stuff in their 20s and 30s. Suddenly, it's not like there's been some gradual trend over the last 50 years, and this
Yeah.
is just now showing up. This is like in the last 2 or 3 years. Now you ask yourself what's changed in the last 2 or 3 years. That could potentially be the cause of that. You know, doesn't necessarily definitively mean it's the vax, but that's the place to look. Let's put it that
Well,
way.
that is a place to look, and even I think it could even be just if you had the illness, you
Hmm.
know, because it's without a doubt it's something that's been engineered, and the truth is coming out about it, and um, you can't deny that, and there is unknown consequences what will happen as a result of even just getting sick, let alone having a shot. So it's
Yeah, we don't know what the 5, 10 year, 15-year consequences are from this
no,
because, of course, we didn't study it. We are the
no.
guinea pigs.
Yeah, definitely. It was the largest human trial in history.
Yeah. And as people gradually begin to figure this out, can you imagine the outrage you would feel if you had a family member that, well, was killed by this thing? Um,
Yeah, yeah, definitely, definitely. And so, it's good on Rand Paul, and this is where it's so important with our elections, because if the Democrats were in control of the House, these investigations wouldn't be going on,
oh, no.
and so don't ever be dismayed by thinking, well, I'm just not going to vote, because it takes all of us to vote our way out of this as well. um, until I learn something different, that's exactly what I'm doing, and I would hope that everybody should, you know because it's important that we have the House and have these investigations. And
Hmm.
if we had the Senate right now, they would be forced to do this impeachment of Mayorkas,
Sure.
but they're trying to do shenanigans with that. Well, maybe we don't have to, which they're not following the Constitution with that.
Hmm.
Um, so, did you have something on Tennessee too?
Yes, it was Tennessee just passed a law allowing its teachers to carry constitutional carry, like in the classroom, which I think is a huge win. Um, we've all heard these, well, we all know about the school shootings situations. And if you're not going to have the armed police officers at the school, then this is maybe the next best thing. I mean, if my wife was a teacher, I really would prefer that she carry um, rather than just be a sitting duck. Seems rational to me.
Well, definitely for me, I'm a person that I support that. I don't believe in gun-free zones at
Hmm.
all. We have a Second Amendment,
Hmm.
and I think people, in a school, that we need to have people that are trained, because we do have lunatics out and about. And with the invasion that is happening in our country at the border, you
Hmm.
can expect more crazy things to happen.
Sure.
And so I think it's a way of helping to keep not just the students, but the staff safe as well.
Yeah. The killers don't believe in gun-free zones either.
No, 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 they don't. And in fact, it's really only all that stuff only affects law-abiding citizens.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, it truly does. Crooks are people that have nefarious ideas
Yeah.
of wanting to hurt others.
Hmm.
They could care less. They're going, oh yeah, where can I go target? Oh yeah, here's a gun-free zone. I can go in there.
Which
You know?
blows your mind when you step back and look at these. Every time something happens, there's like a plethora of laws to be passed against law-abiding citizens. It just doesn't make sense. You
Yeah.
know, just from a rational perspective, that's not the profile of the people doing this. Wouldn't you be looking to pass laws that would impact the people who are doing this? Um, but clearly, it's not about that. We all know now the whole thing is to get guns out of American citizens' hands so they could be ruled. That's the point.
That's the bottom line.
Yeah.
That is the bottom
And
line,
I
part of
think,
the global agenda.
yep. And I think anytime a conservative is engaged in a debate, it's a failure to debate that person with the assumption that they're debating you from an honest perspective. And that is the effectiveness of gun laws, because that's not the point. I mean, somewhere in that discussion, you have to say the real reason for this is to enslave the American people by taking away their right to defend themselves from the government.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
got to say it every single time because that's the true nature of what we're up against.
That's very true. Very, very, very true. Hey, some more good news. Yes, Lori. Oh, you're beating us to the punch. The FISA thing failed today, she wrote. And yes, but I'm going to talk about, well, I'm going to post this other story first, since I already had it posted there, pasted in. The Vatican today denounces gender ideologies and bans gender surgeries as grave violations of human dignity. And did you see that one coming, Don?
No, I didn't. I mean, what a surprise from perhaps the most wishy-washy, noodly Vatican we have seen in a long time. He finally issues something that's definitive and inarguable, and it's great to see that happen.
Yes, it is, and I thought so too because, as you said, wishy washy, and sometimes I just go, what is he thinking? And I think some of the decisions by the Vatican has kind of hurt the church a little bit, and so I think this is a good thing. Saying he's somewhere I had read today going, you know what? It's um, God has determined your sex, and I don't know that it's in this article, but the thing is that's you're messing with nature. You're
Yeah,
messing
well,
with nature, right?
he's one of these people who wants to find common ground and this Neville Chamberlain approach. We got to be talking and we got to find some commonality and we got to find some place where we're compassionate and all of those things. But there is a point where, you know, this is not you prefer blue and I prefer green. I mean, there are places where there's a definitive right and wrong. There isn't a wiggle room, and this is one of those cases. And that doesn't mean you have to be mean and nasty to these people, but it does mean that you have to say, no, that's wrong.
Yes, yes, yes. So I think for the I'm glad that the Pope decided to follow the the Bible's teachings. Quite frankly,
Right, right. No, exactly. If there's anything that 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 gives definitive right and wrong, it's certainly things biblical, and it's also very clearly stated that in for saying that you will not be liked. So this effort to try to be liked and please both sides, hey, there comes a day where you can't do it. You're not going to be liked, or you're going to be liked and you're going to be wrong.
right, right, exactly, and yeah, and I think people need to. Well, I'm not going to even expand on what you just said. You said it perfect. You said it perfect.
Thank you. Yeah, and that's what gets so many politicians in trouble. I think we get a lot of politicians. We elect them. They're saying great things. They're nodding their head. We like them. They get in the swamp, and they start wanting to be liked, and then they get sucked into that swirl. I think that's a huge, aside
Yeah,
from they're just unethical. But I think there's a huge percentage of them that go in ethical, and then they just want to be liked, and you can't be liked. It's
and
just,
making hard decisions.
mhm,
I mean, to be a leader is not to be necessary. That doesn't mean you're going to be hated, but
mhm,
it's also nature that we're not going to agree on everything.
mhm,
We're not going to agree on everything,
mhm,
but and as we've talked about on the show, it is, if you want to make decisions as an adult after you have matured, that's entirely up to you.
mhm.
But I do agree with the Pope's statement here, in denouncing that. And but that's just me personally. But I'm not going to put my beliefs on somebody else. It's
Mhm.
everybody has to make their own decision and what they can morally and ethically live with.
And this is one of those ones where you don't have to be religious to see the rightness and wrongness of this.
Mhm.
I mean, a these these procedures had not been tested, and therefore they should not be implemented just for that reason alone. Number one. Number two, we're talking minors, right?
Mhm.
Minors don't get to make that call, um, and so on both of those counts, it's just horrendous. So, yeah.
Yeah. Well, something along these lines, a little bit, as far as wokeness goes. From PJ Media is a story that West Virginia restricts four more banks over the ESG wokeness. And what they're doing is these banks, they are stopping them from having state contracts.
Mhm.
And that would be TD Bank, Citibank, Northern Trust, and HSBC Holdings.
Mhm.
They're adding those to their list of banks that can no longer have state contracts. And they're just saying, we're done with that. And that's West Virginia.
It's
So,
really cool to see that, yeah, that if there ever was a place where we're winning, it's this DEI thing. More and
yeah.
more companies are walking away from that. There's more and more state legislatures passing rules where they're firing people with those titles. This, it can't be overstated how important this is. Because at the end of the day, this sort of thing is no longer something that's just a province of some wild-eyed John Brown looking university students. This is impact, and this will begin to impact our life, safety, and health in ways that we can't even count. Whether it be people driving cargo ships, whether it be people flying passenger airplanes, whether it be military officers flying F-16s, you start making these decisions for something other than quality in those kinds of cases, and eventually it's not going to be good. It's just not going to be good. So this is great that this whole thing is coming undone.
Yeah, and these banks have said, well, we're going to boycott, fossil fuels. Well, the state said, you know what? We're boycotting you essentially. And to that list that I mentioned, they have already restricted BlackRock, Goldman Sachs, J.P. Morgan Chase, Morgan Stanley, and Wells Fargo.
Mhm.
And so these banks have lost access to an estimated $18 billion
Yeah, I
in
think that's something.
annual inflows and outflows.
Because hey, ethical arguments don't make any difference to people who are unethical. What will always make a difference is the impact on their pocketbook.
Yeah, absolutely. So I thought that was a very good story. It's good to see the pushback. And DEI is diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Mhm.
Instead of having somebody getting hired for their qualifications, merit based,
Mhm.
employment and type, it is, you know, identity politics.
So here's
Exactly.
what. Well, what is it? Was it Oregon that says you don't have to pass the bar anymore?
Yes.
As an example, right? So you can just
Yeah.
walk out the street and hang your shingle and look, you're a lawyer.
Well, I don't know if it's that easy. You still have to complete law school, but I mean, I don't really know what it takes to be a
Well,
lawyer.
see, here's the thing. It used to be in most states, you don't have to go to law school. You just have to pass the bar, right? As long as you pass the bar, and hey, I don't know about you, I'd rather have you pass the bar than go to law school. And there's lawyers who didn't go to law school, just passed the bar. You don't have to go to graduate school in accounting to be a CPA. You just have to pass the CPA exam, right?
Mhm.
Good
Right.
luck doing that without doing
Right.
it. But there's other ways to do that, and there's
Mhm.
people who have done it. So to eliminate the need to pass the bar is now. Here's the thing: the free market will take care of that because who's going to hire somebody who hasn't passed the bar? You're only going to make that mistake once, right? But there's other
Right.
things though that would be more impacted by those kinds of silly decisions.
Well, there's 7 other states that are looking to do the very same thing. And where how do you are once you pass the bar, you're able to practice law, I guess, anywhere. I don't really know. Um,
It's specific to
but
the state. You have to pass that state's bar,
you have to
unless
pass
there's
the
some
other states in order, so
unless
you
there's
have
unless
to
there's
okay.
reciprocity, right?
But now, what about so for example, with all the lawfare going on, Don,
Mhm.
ethical complaints like that was just done to DA Smith, Mike Smith.
Mhm.
What's the agency that they you complain to if it's not the bar?
I haven't, see. I have no idea how all that would work. I'm sure it's not without reason that they're doing this, because these people are clever.
Well, I'm sure it's not without reason, and it might be to stop the lawfare.
Yeah. Okay.
in our own state against Oregon lawyers
Mhm.
because of what's going on. I
Mhm.
have no idea, but I don't think it will actually be good. I want a lawyer that has learned the law,
Mhm.
okay? And hopefully has been an apprentice somewhere, right? You're a law clerk somewhere as you get learn more to be able to study or to enable to pass the bar. I think that's what you do is you go law clerk somewhere for law offices.
Mhm. But as you become a lawless country, um,
I think that's what this no bar is going to aid a lawless country.
yeah, I can't argue that.
I don't know. I don't know. So, well, the great news was the House conservatives tank the FISA bill, which is a blow to Speaker Johnson. But Trump had said today, kill the FISA bill.
Hmm.
And so it has.
Hmm.
Do I think something might come up? Yes. That's just me. I have no inside knowledge there. But this story from the Epic Times says that the conservatives took issue that the surveillance bill had a lack of a warrant requirement over civil liberty concerns, but it also carved out that yes, you can surveil the American people, but you can't surveil the legislators. They had actually carved out some lines and said you can't do the legislators unless you notify us that we're going to be investigated. And the thing is both sides have been investigated.
Well, all animals are equal, but some are more equal than others.
So it actually, there were several Republicans, that 19 Republicans that joined the Democrats to block the bill.
Hmm.
That's surprising. The Democrats,
Hmm.
19 Republicans joined all the Democrats to block it. So, we'll have to see what comes of it. I don't think that'll be the end because the FISA it expires on April 19th. Today's the 10th.
Okay.
So they've got 9 more days to make something happen. And that's why I think something could still, I don't know how those procedures, that's above my pay grade.
Yeah.
In case you didn't know, I don't get paid for this. Don and I are volunteers doing this.
So it doesn't take much to be above our pay grade, but it
Oh
is.
man, that's for sure. That's for sure.
We're not getting any what do you call it? Anything under the table or anything too. It's a bummer's job.
No, no, not at all. Not at all. And the last good news that I have is that the RNC is actually uh, doing really well. It's the new improved RNC is zeroing in on the right priorities. And I just posted an article from PJ Media, and the chair and co-chair, Michael Watley and Lara Trump, respectively, have
Mhm.
said one, they're having record-breaking fundraising, which is
Mhm.
awesome, but
Wow.
they quickly set solid priorities. And
Mhm.
when they were asked about what are you going to do with all of this money that you're making,
Mhm.
they said two things that we are doing. We are going to make sure we're focusing on the battleground states and the districts where we need to be competitive,
Mhm.
and make sure that every dollar we raise is going to be putting lead on the target. And they're going to be looking at election integrity and matching the left's massive ballot harvesting machine,
Mhm.
and but
Mhm.
getting out the vote in those districts and looking and protecting the election and having people in there being observers and whatnot. So I think that is really good news because I was never a fan once we started losing elections of Ronna McDaniel, and thought that no, how do you stay the leader when it's failed?
Mhm.
And we failed in 6 elections.
Yeah,
And
like massively when we should have won. Mm.
yes,
Uh,
Yes. And I
mhm,
think their fundraising is showing people had no confidence. And you
mhm.
have no confidence, you're not going to donate. And
Right.
now they are having record raising fundraising. And so, you know what? Go and um, donate to your favorite candidate, help them because it takes money. We've got the primary coming up in May. And don't
Mhm.
forget, don't mail that ballot.
Don't mail the ballot. You should make a hat. Don't mail the ballot.
Exactly, exactly. And so for where I live, I trust the drop boxes. I know my county, really well, but it's a 40-minute drive, and I can go drop it right at the elections office too.
Yeah.
And I would certainly be willing to do that. It's anyway. Do you have any closing words there, Don? Anything
No,
else?
nothing other than, the usual keep the faith. I think we are definitely winning. I mean, you can see it in the energy that surrounds conservative issues. You can see it in truth leaking out on so many things that you couldn't even talk about a few months ago. And I think it's fantastic. I even saw an article earlier today. It was it's not in this country, but it goes to show what's happening in other countries. I think it was Portugal. Portugal's conservative body just came in number two in their elections there. So we're seeing that overseas, where the conservatives are taking back the fort, if you will. So on balance, things are going the right way. We just have to heat the pedal to the metal.
Yes, we do. Thank you, everybody. Share the message and, just spread the word on Captive Audience. And we will be back on Friday.